To end a series requires a certain amount of monumentality. If the finale simply blends in with the rest of the show as just another episode, it has completely and utterly failed its job, because it's not just another episode. The stakes have never been higher, the characters are at a critical juncture, the scale is the largest it's ever been.
Now in our case, those first two things don't really apply, but the latter, now that's something I can address.
As it happens, White Rock is brimming with monumentality. The longest pier in the nation, a titanic white boulder, the thundering iron horse, and even the occasional visit from an ocean leviathan. But for this episode, we need to travel beyond the borders of the city by the sea, as there's one icon on the shores of the Samiamu Bay whose size and story truly embody the word monumental, the only structure fit for the finale of this series. Let's talk White Rock. The 49th parallel is the circle of latitude 49 degrees north of the equator. It cuts across the beaches of Normandy, France, through the waters of the mighty English Channel, and perhaps most importantly, forms part of the longest border between two nations, the United States of America and Canada. Back in 1846, the Oregon Treaty was established, extending the pre-existing border between the USA and the then British territories to the Pacific coast. Apart from Vancouver Island and the Gulf Islands, which remained under British control, the use of the 49th parallel as the dividing line created a clean, defined partition. Okay, you and I both know that isn't true. Point Roberts, the southern end of the Tawasin Peninsula, was sliced off by the line, becoming an enclave of the USA and a pain in the butt for permanent residents who have to travel through another country just to get to school and work in Blaine and beyond. Speaking of Blaine, the need eventually arose for a border station. So naturally, it was built 9 kilometers away from the 49th parallel near Crescent Beach in the community of Elgin.
Now there was some strategy behind this decision, as the Nickelmackle River and Samiamu Trail that run through the area were essential arteries to and from the Fraser Valley.
The border was relocated in 1891 to the neighborhood of Douglas, which is great because now the border crossing was actually located at the border. Avid viewers of this series may have a guess as to why this happened, as the New Westminster Southern Railway we talked about in episode 1 was constructed through Douglas before being rerouted through White Rock. On that topic, the alterations to the railroad starting in 1906 would coincide with the border crossing moving once again, this time to roughly its current location near the mouth of Blaine's Drayton Harbor. Customs and Immigration Services on the Canadian side were located in the new White Rock train station, which has since become the White Rock Museum and Archives.
Now that's all well and good, but I think it's time this video about the Peace Arch starts being, about the Peace Arch.
Enter Sam Hill, American businessman, lawyer, and transportation fanatic. He had a vision for an auto trail that stretched from Alaska all the way to Mexico. In 1913, the Pacific Highway was officially established, eventually being expanded north to Vancouver. The route would run straight through the border, a perfect place for the crown jewel of Sam's master plan. To celebrate 100 years of peace between Canada, then still British territories, and the United States since the Treaty of Ghent, which ended the War of 1812, Hill wanted a monument. He wasn't alone, as White Rock's own Frank Mackenzie, for example, an avid supporter of the highway, is often credited as one of several key figures in the monument's conception. Unfortunately, though, Hill's monument would hit a bit of a snag early on, as the breakout of World War I would ironically delay the building of the now dubbed Peace Arch.
But where would the monument be situated? What would it look like? And most importantly, who was going to pay for it? Stay tuned to find out the answer to those questions, right now.
In 1919, Sam met with members of the Washington State Good Roads Association to pinpoint a location. They chose a spot that would present the most picturesque views from all directions, right on the international boundary between the two nations. The architect chosen to design the arch was H.W. Corbett, who impressed Sam with his ability to design an earthquake-proof structure of such magnitude. Additional credit has also been given to Henry Bassett, Julius J. Bunnell, and a man known only as Lancaster for the design. Funding for the arch was an international effort, as the Pacific Highway Association sought backing from BC, Washington, Oregon, and California. The fundraising was a bit of a mess, though, as Sam ended up footing the bill for much of the $40,000 construction cost himself. But that isn't to say no one contributed to the cause, as many of Sam's friends donated materials, such as R.P. Butchart of Victoria, whose property in Saanich would become the world-famous Butchart Gardens. The workforce was made up of people from every demographic you could imagine, from World War I veterans to White Rock schoolgirls. In roughly 1 year, they were able to complete the 67-foot-tall Doric-style monument, complete with 470 electric bulbs to illuminate the beast. The cornerstone was laid on September 6, 1921, the very same day the Mayflower sailed from Plymouth 300 years before. Hundreds gathered for the dedication, a true moment of union between the two nations. The park itself, although first pitched by White Rock's own H.T. Thrift, wouldn't come to exist in its current form until 1939. It was clear from the beginning that the Canadian side of the park wasn't as well maintained as the American side. Even World War I hero Marshal Joffre called out the lack of care in his speech during the arch rededication ceremony held in his honor in 1922. To rub salt in the proverbial wound, the Americans dedicated their side of the park in 1932 in Sam Hill's honor, further exhibiting the contrast between the two ends of the site. After these back-to-back embarrassments, the government locked in, and with help from groups like the Boys and Girls Peace Memorial Park League, the Canadian side was brought up to the same standard as America's by summer 1940. By nature, the Peace Arch has long been the site of all manner of events, from concerts to war protests to the Olympic torch relay. Paul Robeson, an American singer, actor, football player, and most importantly for this story, activist, was famously prevented from performing a concert in Vancouver in 1952, as certain pro-Soviet Union comments he had made led the American government to banning him from exiting the country.
For the younger folks in the audience, the Soviet Union was a communist state dissolved in 1991. It contained the modern countries of Russia, Ukraine, and 13 others. If you are under 18 and watching this, what are you doing, man? Go to the discotheque. Go rollerblading like kids do nowadays, you know?
Later in the same year, Robeson performed on the back of a flatbed truck in Peace Arch Park, which resulted in this famously cheeky photo being snapped. In 1970, the arch was damaged by Canadian protesters of the ongoing Cambodian campaign of the Vietnam War, which was thankfully repaired quickly.
In the modern day, the Peace Arch retains its relevance. For example, it was the only place where the Olympic torch passed through the United States during the Vancouver Olympic relay. That was 16 years ago. Oh, how old does that make me? Like 50? Oh, where did the time go? I was so young and now I'm so old.
There are many words one could use to describe the Peace Arch. Tall, white, arch, but none match the grandeur, the splendor of monumental. The size of the structure certainly fits that descriptor, but it's what it represents, what it stands for, that truly means something of monumental importance. 4 phrases are listed around the structure: brethren dwelling together in unity, children of a common mother, 1814, open 100 years, 1914. May these gates never be closed. These phrases don't merely represent the peaceful coexistence between two nations, they represent something far greater. The Peace Arch isn't just a symbol of Canada or the United States, it's a monument to peace on Earth. In the modern day, it's hard to imagine world peace being at all attainable. But if Sam Hill and the people that brought the arch to life could dream of it in a time of war and inequality, perhaps we owe it to them to make their dream a reality.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Let's Talk White Rock. I hope you learned as much from this series as I did while making it. You know, for all this talk about endings this episode, it was kind of lackluster, wasn't it? Well, at least we're not ending it like The Sopranos, right? With a cut to black. May these gates never be closed. This is not a gate. This is a fence stapled to the wall.